After a collapse, a lot of people think they'll just head to the countryside and start over. They won't, and the reason has nothing to do with violence. There's a comforting idea that rural areas are empty, welcoming, and just ready to absorb outsiders who show up. That idea is wrong, not because rural people are evil, but because systems, trust, and capacity matter. What you imagine is a fantasy, a dangerous one. So here's what actually happens and how you can plan for reality. Let's start with the core rule. After a collapse, survival is local. It is hyperlocal. If you weren't part of a place before the crisis, you are not automatically part of it after. That's the baseline you have to accept. So let's break down why. Reason number one, rural areas are not empty. People from cities imagine this vast open land with spare resources and plenty of room for everyone. The reality is that most of that land is owned. It's private property or it's managed by the government for specific purposes. And the food grown there, it's already allocated. The farmers who grow it have plans for it, for their families, for their livestock, for trade with neighbors they've known their whole lives. Margins are thin even in normal times. There is no massive surplus sitting around. So your first action is to stop assuming unused land equals available land. You need to understand that carrying capacity, the number of people a piece of land can actually support, matters far more than total acreage. Remember this, space doesn't equal surplus. Reason number two, rural communities already have a plan. It might not be written down in some official document, but it exists. People in these places already know each other. They know who has a generator, who's a mechanic, who's a nurse. Labor, tools, and valuable skills are already spoken for. These relationships, this web of trust, is earned over years, not in a desperate moment when you show up on their doorstep. So the action here is to get the idea of being taken in out of your head. Your plan needs to be built on being fully self-contained first. You have to assume you will receive no help, because communities don't magically form during a crisis, they tighten. Look, I know this might go against a lot of what you see online. If this is challenging a popular prepper narrative, subscribe. This channel focuses on what actually holds up when stress hits. Now, let's get back to it. Reason number three, you arrive as a logistical burden. Think about it from their perspective. What does an outsider bring? At a minimum, extra mouths to feed, but also unknown needs. Do you have medical conditions? Are you carrying a disease? You are an unknown risk. And what don't you bring? You don't bring proven reliability. You don't bring a shared history that makes you a known quantity. You haven't put in the years of being a good neighbor. The action item is simple. Stop planning to arrive empty-handed and desperate. Any plan that involves movement has to include full self-support for a long, long time. Neediness destroys trust faster than fear. Reason number four, and this one is critical. The movement itself is the most dangerous phase of any collapse. The fantasy is a clean drive out to the country. The reality is that fuel access will become unreliable almost instantly. Roads will clog with everyone else who had the same bad idea. Vehicles will fail without access to parts or mechanics, leaving you stranded. And the risk of exposure to the elements, to desperate people, spikes the second you leave a secure location. Don't plan for long-distance relocation during chaos. The right move almost always is to shelter in place unless you are physically forced to leave. The journey kills more people than the destination. Reason number five, rural life is skill-intensive, not romantic. People vastly underestimate what it takes. It's not just planting a few seeds. It's about seasonal timing, knowing when to plant, when to harvest, and how to fight pests without a trip to the hardware store. It's about animal care when there's no vet. It's about tool repair when you can't just buy a new one. It's about a deep, humbling dependence on the weather. So the action is this. If you can't produce your own food right now where you are, you will not magically learn how to do it in a crisis. Learn the skills before you need them. You can't improvise experience. This brings us to reason number six. Trust is the real currency. After a collapse, when the dollar is worthless, people will trade with who they know and who they trust. Reputation will be everything. Outsiders aren't automatically villains, they're just unknowns. And in a high-stress environment, unknown is the same as threat until proven otherwise. So what do? You build relationships now, right where you live. Get involved locally, know your neighbors, be a useful person before you're a desperate one, because trust compounds slowly and collapses instantly. So if running to the hills is a fantasy, what actually works instead? A realistic survival strategy is about strengthening where you already are. It looks like knowing your actual neighbors, not a hypothetical farmer 100 miles away. It's about methodically reducing your dependencies on fragile, long-distance systems. It's about creating redundancy in your own home for water, for heat, for food. It's about preparing quietly and consistently. You don't need a better destination, you need a better foundation. So what are the practical alternatives? Instead of planning a panicked flight to a rural area, improve your home's resilience. Build a mutual aid network locally with the people on your street. Stock the essentials you need to shelter in place for a long time, and learn transferable skills that are useful anywhere. First aid, mechanics, gardening, communication. Prepared people don't migrate, they adopt. No one is waiting for you in rural areas, and that's not an insult. It's a reminder, survival isn't about escape. It's about belonging before a crisis, not showing up after.